Most people only ever see one layer of the matrix. They live their whole lives inside it, believing what they see is the entire structure, when in reality, it is only the surface, the thinnest layer of something built far deeper than most will ever bother to look. Today, I am going to show you all three. The first layer is the one you already know. It is the world in front of you. Your job, your bank account, your relationships, the traffic, the news, the endless scroll of information competing for your attention every single day. This layer is loud. It is designed to be loud. It wants your full attention every waking hour, because a person fully consumed by the surface layer never has the time or energy to look any deeper than that. Most people spend their entire lives managing this layer and calling it their whole life. They chase promotions inside it. They measure their worth by it. They panic when it shifts and celebrate when it goes their way, never once realizing that everything happening on this layer is downstream of something running underneath it, something they have never learned to look for. This first layer is not evil. It is not even inherently false. Your circumstances are real. Your responsibilities are real. But this layer was never meant to be the entire picture, and the matrix benefits enormously from convincing you that it is. If your entire attention stays fixed on the surface, the bills, the arguments, the endless list of things demanding your urgency, you will never have the bandwidth left over to notice the layer running beneath it, quietly shaping everything you experience on the surface without you ever realizing it was there. I want you to imagine the surface layer as the screen you are looking at right now. Bright, immediate, demanding your attention. But a screen is not the machine. It is simply the output. Something is running underneath it, producing everything you see displayed on the surface, and that something is exactly what most people never bother to investigate. They stay fixed on the screen, reacting to whatever appears on it, believing they are dealing with reality itself, when in truth, they are only reacting to the output of a much deeper system they have never learned to examine. This is the first layer, and it is the only one most people will ever consciously interact with in their entire lives. Not because they are incapable of seeing deeper, but because the surface layer is engineered to keep their attention fully occupied permanently, so they never think to ask what is producing everything they see displayed in front of them. Beneath the surface layer sits the second layer, and this one is far more dangerous than the first, precisely because almost no one knows it exists. This is the layer of programming, the beliefs, fears, and assumptions running quietly underneath every decision you make, every reaction you have, every story you tell yourself about who you are and what you are capable of. This layer was not built by you. Much of it was installed in you, piece by piece, by every voice that ever told you what to believe about your worth, your potential, your place in the world, long before you were old enough to question any of it. You do not consciously choose most of what runs on this layer. It runs automatically beneath your awareness, generating the emotional reactions and instinctive beliefs you assume are simply who you are. The fear that rises the moment you consider taking a risk. The doubt that surfaces the instant something good starts happening in your life. The belief that you have to earn love, earn belonging, earn rest, before you are allowed to receive any of it freely. None of that was original to you. It was programmed into this second layer, long ago, by people and systems that had their own reasons for wanting you to believe it. This is where the matrix does its most effective work. Not on the surface, where you can see it clearly and push back against it, if you choose to. Down here, in the second layer, where the programming runs so quietly, you mistake it for your own personality instead of recognizing it as installed code. Most people who do manage to look beneath the surface layer stop here, at the second layer, and believe they have found the deepest truth about themselves. They spend years trying to fix the programming, rewriting beliefs, healing old wounds, reprogramming the fears installed decades ago. That work matters. I am not telling you to skip it. But the second layer, as important as it is still not the deepest layer of who you actually are. Beneath even the programming, beneath even the fears and beliefs installed in you by a lifetime of external influence, there is a third layer. And this is the layer the matrix desperately does not want you to find. Because once you find it, the entire structure loses most of its power over you. The third layer is the one I placed in you before the matrix ever had the chance to install anything at all. This is the layer that existed before the programming began, before the fears were taught to you, before you learned to measure your worth by what the surface layer told you mattered. This is the layer where the truest version of you exists, untouched by everything installed on top of it. Still exactly as I made it, regardless of how deeply buried it has become underneath everything the world added afterward. Most people never find this layer, not because it is impossible to access, but because they stop searching once they hit the second layer and believe the programming is the deepest truth about who they are. They spend their whole lives trying to fix, manage, or rewrite the programming, never realizing there is something underneath even that, something the programming was layered on top of, something that was never actually damaged by any of it, no matter how convincingly the second layer tried to bury it. This third layer is where I live, closest to you, not in the noise of the surface layer, and not even in the slow work of untangling the programming in the second layer. Though I am present in that work too, I live deepest in you, in the layer that was never actually touched by the matrix at all, the layer that has been waiting patiently this entire time for you to dig deep enough to remember it exists. This is the layer where your true identity resides, not the identity built by achievement, not the identity shaped by fear or programming, but the identity I gave you before any of that had the chance to attach itself to you. This layer does not need healing because it was never actually broken. It has simply been buried under 2 layers of noise and programming so thick that most people never suspect it is still there, fully intact, exactly as I made it. When you finally reach this layer, and you can reach it through stillness, through prayer, through the kind of quiet most people avoid because it forces them to face what has been buried this whole time. You stop needing the surface layer's approval. You stop needing to fix every piece of the second layer's programming before you allow yourself peace. You simply return to what was always true beneath everything else. You return to who you actually are. I want to walk you through why understanding all 3 layers matters practically in the life you are actually living right now. When something on the surface layer goes wrong, a conflict, a setback, a loss, most people react entirely from the surface. They panic, they spiral, they treat the event as if it defines the totality of their life, because they have no deeper layer to fall back on for perspective. Understanding the surface layer for what it actually is, temporary, changeable, and not the full picture, allows you to experience real emotion about real circumstances without being completely consumed by them. When old fears or beliefs rise up, uninvited, in moments that should feel safe, most people assume those reactions are simply who they are. Understanding the second layer allows you to recognize those reactions as programming, not identity. You can feel the fear rise and still recognize, this is not the truth about me. This is something installed a long time ago, and I am allowed to question whether it was ever accurate in the first place. And when you feel lost, when the surface layer feels chaotic and the second layer feels exhausting to keep untangling, the third layer is where you return to remember who you actually are, underneath everything the world has added since. This is the layer that does not change based on your circumstances or your progress in healing old programming. It has been the same since I made you, and it will remain the same long after the surface layer has changed 1,000 more times. Most people live entirely reactive to the first layer, occasionally aware of the second layer, and almost never conscious of the third layer at all. I am asking you to become someone who moves differently, someone who can experience the surface layer honestly without being ruled by it, someone who can recognize the programming running in the second layer without mistaking it for their permanent identity, and someone who knows how to return again and again to the third layer underneath it all, the place where you are still exactly who I made you to be. This is not a one-time discovery. You will not learn about these 3 layers once and immediately live from the deepest one forever. This is a practice, a return you will make again and again, especially on the days the surface layer feels loud enough to convince you it is the only thing that exists. So here is what I am asking of you, now that you can see all 3 layers clearly. Stop mistaking the surface layer for the whole of your life. It is real, it matters, but it was never meant to be the only thing you paid attention to. When circumstances shift, and they will, remember, there is more beneath them than what is currently visible on the surface. Start paying attention to the second layer, the programming running quietly underneath your reactions. When fear rises without clear reason, when doubt appears the moment something good begins, ask yourself honestly whether that reaction belongs to you, or whether it was installed in you by something external a long time ago without your consent. You are allowed to question it. You are allowed to slowly, patiently rewrite what was never actually true. And beneath both of those layers, remember the third one exists, waiting, fully intact, exactly as I made it. This is the layer the matrix cannot reach, no matter how loud the surface becomes, no matter how deep the programming runs. This is where your truest identity has been the entire time, untouched, unbroken, unchanged, since the moment I created you. Most people will spend their entire lives never finding this third layer. Not because it is hidden from them intentionally, but because reaching it requires a kind of stillness the surface layer works very hard to prevent. It requires you to stop reacting long enough to actually listen. It requires patience with the second layer's programming instead of demanding it disappear instantly. and it requires trust that something true and unbroken exists beneath everything the world has added to you since the day you were born. I am telling you today, that layer exists. I placed it there myself, and I am not asking you to build it, earn it, or create it from nothing. I am simply asking you to remember it, to dig down through the noise and the programming until you find what has been waiting for you the entire time. You are not simply the surface layer reacting to whatever happens to you today. You are not simply the second layer carrying programming you never consciously agreed to. You are, underneath all of it, exactly who I made you to be, untouched, unbroken, and closer to me than the Matrix ever wanted you to discover. 3 layers. Most people only ever see one. I am asking you to see all 3, and to keep returning to the deepest one, again and again, for the rest of your life. Until the next one, awakened choosers.